You were never born not in the way you think. You appeared, yes. You emerged into this form, yes. But your essence, the real you, has no beginning and no end. You are not flesh and bone confined to time. You are light, timeless, and indivisible. A whisper from the infinite, dancing temporarily in the costume of matter. This world taught you early on to identify with your body the way it looks, how it's perceived, what it achieves. But this identity is borrowed. It is a name written in sand, vulnerable to the next wave. Your soul, however, that eternal current beneath the skin, has never needed validation. It's simply island, and it is magnificent. You are not here to become something. You are here to remember what you've always been. Your soul does not speak in words. It does not shout or demand. It whispers, it nudges, it resonates. And when you're still enough to listen, you begin to notice that what you've been seeking out there has been quietly waiting within you all along. The world says you are a body and you might have a soul. But the truth is, you are a soul. And for a brief moment, you have a body. And what a sacred opportunity this is to walk the earth with feet made of stardust, to see through eyes that carry galaxies, to breathe not just oxygen, but presence, to feel not just emotion, but the echo of the divine within every rise and fall of your being. The body is a vehicle, temporary, miraculous, but not who you are. It is the lamp. The soul is the flame, the light it casts. That's your real essence. But we forget. We forget and we suffer. We attach ourselves to appearances, to roles, to names, to our past. We say, this is me. I am what I've been through. I am what others think of me. I am what I own, what I fear, what I lack. But none of that is true. You are not your story. You are not your scars. You are not your possessions, your achievements, your failures. You are not even your personality, for that too is shaped by the winds of experience. Who you are is the one observing all of that. The awareness behind the thoughts, the presence behind the mask, the silence underneath the noise. When you realize this, not as a belief, but as a lived knowing something miraculous happens, the grip of the ego loosens, the fear of death fades, the chase for approval loses its urgency because you remember you've never been separate from the source that created you. Your soul does not age, it does not break, it does not compare or compete, it does not cling. It watches, it learns, it loves always and without condition. The moment you begin identifying as the soul instead of the body, you step into peace. You begin to forgive more easily. You let go more willingly. You laugh more freely because you're no longer trying to protect something temporary. You're finally living from something eternal. We spend so much time trying to decorate the outside, not realizing the light we seek is already glowing within. The sacred isn't out there. It's not hidden in a temple or buried beneath years of struggle. It is within you, right here, right now. You do not need to become spiritual. You already are. Your very nature is spirit pure, formless, eternal. You just forgot. And forgetting is not a sin. It's part of the journey. But now it's time to remember. And so we begin to shed what was never truly ours to carry. The labels, the expectations, the unspoken agreements with fear, they begin to dissolve like mist in the morning sun. Because when you recognize yourself as a soul, you no longer need the weight of identity to feel real. You already are. Real, whole, eternal. The soul does not strive, it simply expresses. It does not chase happiness, it radiates joy. It does not argue for its limitations, it knows only freedom. Every burden you've carried, every wound you've protected like sacred glass, was only asking to be seen through the eyes of your true nature, through the eyes of grace. You are not broken, my friend. You are breaking open like a seed beneath the soil. And all that cracking, that trembling, that falling apart is the doorway. It's how light enters what you once tried to hide. You're not falling apart, you're falling inward, back home. The soul doesn't resist change. It flows with it, like a river moving through valleys and over stones. It knows that even detours are divine, that even delays are part of the dance, that even the heartbreak was a teacher dressed in disguise reminding you of what cannot be taken from you. And what is that? What cannot be taken? Your essence, your light, your capacity to love without condition. Your ability to start again, not because you've failed, but because you've grown. That is the soul's promise, not a life without pain, but a life where pain awakens you to deeper truth. The mind may cling to the known, but the soul delights in the unknown. The soul whispers, let go. Not because it wants you to lose, but because it knows you cannot hold what is sacred with clenched fists. You must open, you must soften, you must trust the unfolding. You see, the ego builds walls to survive. The soul breaks them to thrive. One imprisons, the other expands. And each moment offers you the choice to react from fear or respond from love. To shrink into the old story or step courageously into your higher knowing, and this knowing doesn't need proof. It doesn't ask for permission. It already island. It lives in the quiet awareness behind your breath, in the stillness between your thoughts. In the ache of longing, that's not for anything out there, but for union with your true self. When you say, I am a soul with a body, you're not denying this physical experience. You're simply remembering its role, a canvas for the eternal to paint its wisdom, a vessel, not a verdict, an instrument, not the music. And, the music you came here to play. You didn't come to live someone else's idea of a life. You didn't come to fit into the shape of someone's expectations. You came to express divinity in a way that only you can. You came to be a note in the great symphony of the universe, unique, irreplaceable, essential. But how can you play your note if you're silencing your soul? You must listen, not with your ears, but with your being, with your heart unguarded, with your attention turned inward like a compass. And there you'll begin to hear the subtle guidance that's always been there. The soul does not shout because it doesn't need to. Truth is never loud, it's simply undeniable. You are not here by accident. You are not randomly assigned a life. You are a precise expression of the infinite, placed in time and space with purpose. And that purpose is not something you need to chase. It's something you need to remember. You fulfill it not by efforting, but by aligning, by being what you already are, without resistance, by loving yourself not as a project to be fixed, but as a miracle to be revealed. The soul is not in need of repair, it's in need of recognition. Can you see it now? That the search was never to find who you are, but to unlearn who you are not. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. You are not your emotions. You are the space in which they rise and fall. You are not your past. You are the presence witnessing the unfolding of now. And you are not your body, though it is sacred, though it is divine, it is not your limit, it is your lens. And the soul is what shines through it. So breathe. Breathe not just with your lungs, but with your awareness. Breathe into the center of your being where silence is not empty, but full of wisdom, full of remembrance, full of truth. You are not the tension, you are not the noise, you are the stillness beneath it all. And in that stillness, you will find what you've been aching for, yourself. You are the sky, not the storm, the light, not the lampshade. You are the timeless essence moving through time, wearing this life like a robe. But robes can be shed, and identities, no matter how tightly held, can be released. There is no shame in loosening the grip on who you thought you had to be. The soul is not interested in how the world measures you. It is not trying to impress. It does not need validation, recognition, or applause. The soul is here for one thing, expansion. It longs to grow, to learn, to love more deeply than the day before. It wants to know itself through experience, through surrender, through presence. Not through control, not through force, not through resistance. And yet we resist. We resist what changes us. We resist what softens us. We resist even our own joy, convinced we must earn it. But the soul has never once demanded your perfection. It only asks for your presence, your willingness, your open heart. You are not here to master the world. You are here to master your alignment with the infinite within you. Everything else is a reflection. Life bends to meet you at the level of your own vibration. When you radiate truth, life echoes it back. When you radiate peace, the chaos loses its grip. And when you live from soul, the entire universe becomes your mirror. There are no accidents in a universe governed by divine intelligence. That means your pain was not meaningless. It carved space for compassion. Your losses were not punishments. They redirected you toward truth. Your longing was not emptiness. It was the calling of the sacred, beckoning you back to what you've always been. And what is that? You are love. Not love as a feeling, but love as a state of being. As the origin and destination of your essence, you are not here to find love. You are love, remembering itself. Every time you offer forgiveness instead of resentment, every time you choose peace over pride, every time you allow instead of resist, the soul rejoices. Because now you are remembering. And in that remembrance, there is healing. Deep, unshakable, cellular healing. A healing that doesn't just touch your emotions, but your energy, your choices, your very perception of what's possible. The soul doesn't heal through fixing. It heals through reuniting you with your wholeness. The wholeness that was never broken, only buried. Buried beneath shoulds and doubts and masks and noise, but never lost. You have never lost your light. It simply waited patiently, silently, lovingly. Like the sun behind the clouds, it never stopped shining. So now, I ask you, what if you stopped searching for your soul and started living from it? What if you began each morning not asking, what must I do? But instead, what would my soul have me become? What would change if you stopped trying to prove your worth and simply embodied it? This is not a concept. This is a remembrance, a returning, a reuniting with what is more real than any fear, stronger than any story, more permanent than any pain. You are a soul with a body. But the body will one day dissolve and the soul will remain. That means your truth is not what you can touch, but what you are when all else falls away. That means every time you look in the mirror and think, I am not enough, you are listening to the wrong voice. You're listening to the illusion, not the light. The light says, you are enough because you are eternal. The light says you belong because you are one with all. The light says, you are love, and no circumstance can take that from you. Now, can you hear it? Then stay with me, not just with your mind, but with the quietest space in your heart. The place that doesn't need convincing, because it already knows. The place that recognizes truth, not as something learned, but as something remembered. This is the remembering, that you were never the role you played. You were never the job title, the resume, the nameplate, the applause. You were never the trauma, the betrayal, or the lonely night. You were, and still are, the eternal witness behind it all. The you that was there before the heartbreak is the same you that will remain long after healing. The you that watched your first breath will be the one to watch your last without fear. Because the soul is not concerned with beginnings or endings. It lives in the eternal now. It doesn't count years, it counts awakenings. And every moment you remember that you are more than this form that's resurrection, that's liberation, that's life, not just surviving, but soaring. So ask yourself, where have I mistaken the mask for the face? Where have I been protecting my ego instead of expressing my essence? Where have I allowed the temporary to eclipse the timeless? Your body may grow tired, your thoughts may become cloudy, your emotions may rise and fall, but the soul remains clear, present, undisturbed. Like the moon reflecting in 1,000 rippling lakes, the form may change, but the light is the same. When you know yourself as soul, you begin to see others that way too. You no longer judge the wounded behavior, you see the pain behind it. You no longer cling to being right, you find joy in being love. You no longer need to win, you already are whole. What once angered you softens. What once scared you loses its grip. What once defined you falls away, revealing the divine underneath. This is not detachment from life, this is the fullness of it. For only when you release your false identity do you become available to the miracle of what's here. Now, this breath, this presence, this sacred, now unburdened by the past, unworried about the future. You don't need to transcend this world, you just need to remember the part of you that is untouched by it. That's the paradox of the soul that is in the world, but not of it. It lives through the senses, but is not limited to them. It dances in time, but rests in the timeless. And once you taste that truth, even for a moment, you will never be the same. You begin to live differently, speak differently, love differently, because now you're not acting from fear, but flowing from essence. And in that flow, miracles become natural. Peace becomes effortless. Purpose becomes inevitable. Do not wait for the world to reflect your worth. That is the ego's game. Instead, reflect your soul to the world and watch it rise to meet you. There's a radiance that lives within you, not earned, not borrowed, but born of the infinite. And no darkness, no rejection, no failure has the power to diminish it. It is your inheritance. It is your birthright. It is your home. So come home. Come home to the stillness inside the storm. Come home to the presence behind the performance. Come home to the love that asks for nothing in return. Come home to yourself. Because when you live from soul, you live from source. And when you live from source, life flows not without challenges, but without resistance. And that is where freedom lives. Not in what you own, not in what others see, but in what you know deep in your bones about who and what you truly are. You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul that for a moment wears a body. Let that truth breathe through every cell of your being. Let it guide your words, your walk, your choices. Let it dissolve the illusions that have kept you small. Let it unchain the love you've been afraid to give. Let it set fire to the doubts that once kept you waiting for a sign. You are the sign. You are the light you've been seeking. You are the peace you've been chasing. You are the miracle you've been praying for. All of it lives within you, not in the future, but in the eternal now. Then allow yourself to fall even deeper into this space, the space where truth is not spoken to the mind, but remembered by the soul. You are not here to add more to yourself. You are here to strip away what was never true. The false beliefs, the borrowed fears, the armor built from past pain, all of it was never yours. It was lent to you by a world that forgot its own soul. But now you remember, and in remembering, you reclaim. Reclaim your stillness. Reclaim your softness. Reclaim your knowing, the deep, unshakable knowing that you are divine presence in motion. There is nothing more powerful than a human being who knows they are more than human, not above it, not beyond it, but deeper than it, infused with a presence that cannot be named, only felt. When you live from this place, there's no need to rush, no need to prove, no need to defend, because presence has no need for protection. It's simply island. The body may grow weary, the mind may wander, but the soul remains anchored in the now. And when you return to that now, you realign with the rhythm of the universe, the heartbeat of God, the breath of eternity pulsing through this moment. You do not need to become spiritual. You are spirit. You do not need to achieve peace. You are peace underneath the layers of thought. You do not need to attain love. You are love in its purest and most formless state. Everything else is illusion. Everything else is ego's voice whispering of separation when unity is all that ever was. You have never been separate from the source, not for a second. The wave is not separate from the ocean. It may rise, it may fall, but it never ceases to be ocean. So too with you. This lifetime is not a departure from God. It is God discovering itself through your eyes, your voice, your heart. And when you see others, truly see them not as roles, not as opinions, not as identities, but as souls cloaked in temporary flesh, you begin to live in reverence. Every encounter becomes holy. Every gaze becomes sacred. Because now you are no longer looking at others, you are looking into them. And what you find is yourself. All division begins with the belief that we are only bodies. All violence begins with the belief that we are separate selves fighting for survival. But the soul knows there is no other. The soul knows we are one, expressions of one source, echoes of one song, waves of one sea. When you wake up to this, truly wake up, your life becomes a prayer in motion, a meditation that walks and breathes and speaks. Your presence becomes your offering. Your silence becomes your wisdom. Your existence becomes your purpose. You stop asking, what should I do? And begin asking, how shall I be? And being becomes the blessing. Being patient, being kind, being rooted, being aware, being open, being here. That is how the soul moves through the world, not with noise, but with depth, not with force, but with grace. And grace is what you came here to embody. Grace not as something earned, but something remembered. Something so natural to your being that once you stop trying to be more, it reveals itself. This is the paradox. When you finally stop reaching outside yourself, the entire universe reaches through you. Your words begin to heal. Your touch begins to comfort. Your silence begins to teach. Not because you are trying, but because you are being. And that being is soul. You are not your past. You are the presence that has witnessed it all. You are not your trauma. You are the awareness that has survived it all. You are not your mistakes. You are the light that outshines them all. Let go now, not because you're broken, but because you're ready to be whole. Let go of who you were told to be. Let go of the guilt that keeps replaying an old story. Let go of the anxiety that believes you are alone in this. You were never alone. You were just disconnected from your own light. But even in that disconnection, the light never left you. It waited, patiently, quietly, lovingly, because that's what light does. It waits until you are ready to see. And now, you are beginning to see, not with the eyes in your head, but with the eyes of your soul, the eyes that recognize divinity, not as an idea, but as the truth beneath all forms. So walk forward not as someone seeking approval, but as one who already is what they were seeking. Walk not with the posture of striving, but with the stillness of remembering. Walk not to get anywhere, but to embody what's already here. You are soul. You are sacred. You are enough. Not someday, not once you heal, not when the world sees it. But now, and now is all that ever mattered. There is a place in you that has never been touched by fear. A place that has never doubted its worth, never questioned its belonging, never once asked for permission to exist. It is the silent chamber of your soul, untouched by time, unbothered by the noise of the world. And it is here in this holy stillness that you remember who you are. You are not the seeker, you are what is being sought. You are not the question. You are the answer that has always been whispered between the beats of your heart. You are not the journey. You are the presence walking through it. This remembrance is not a belief. It is not a philosophy to be argued or a doctrine to defend. It is a truth so intimate, so innate, that when you touch it, it feels like coming home to yourself. This is the soul's gift. It never condemns, never compares, never rushes you toward enlightenment. It waits. And in its waiting, it teaches the greatest lesson of all that you have always been enough, even in your mess, even in your grief, even in the chapters you've tried to hide from the light. The soul sees no shame in your becoming. It only sees beauty in your unfolding. There is no scoreboard in the soul's world, no measuring stick of success. There is only presence. And presence doesn't ask, how far have you come? It asks, are you here, fully, gently, lovingly? The ego builds identities. The soul reveals essence. The ego separates. The soul includes. The ego argues to be right. The soul listens to understand. And every time you choose soul over ego, you soften the world around you. You bring peace where there was noise. You bring light where there was confusion. You become a lighthouse, not trying to convince the ships, but simply shining. And people feel it. They may not say it, but they feel it. They feel the calm in your presence, the depth in your silence, the truth in your eyes, not because you're perfect, but because you're real, because you've come home to yourself, and now they remember how to come home too. You begin to live not for appearances, but for alignment, not for attention, but for authenticity, not to escape life, but to become one with it fully, fearlessly, faithfully. Because now you see your worth was never negotiable. Your light was never conditional. Your presence was never accidental. You were chosen by the infinite, not as a mistake, but as a message, a sacred note in the divine song of existence. You are not here to be small. You are not here to play the part others cast for you. You are here to radiate without apology, without delay, without shrinking. And you don't need to know the entire path. You just need to know the next aligned step. The soul doesn't demand a 5-year plan. It whispers, be here now, and the rest will reveal itself. You are guided. You are held. You are loved, not because of what you do, but because of what you are. And what you are is eternal. So stop fighting the truth of your own brilliance. Stop deferring your peace to someday. Stop thinking your healing lives at the end of achievement. It lives here. Now, in the choice to return again and again to the stillness behind your breath, you are not a project. You are a presence. You are not a mistake. You are a miracle. You are not chasing purpose. You are walking purposefully. Because when you live as soul, everything becomes sacred. The ordinary becomes holy. The mundane becomes divine. And you begin to see there is no separation between you and the source. There never was. The same intelligence that paints galaxies into existence is breathing your lungs right now. The same presence that holds stars in orbit is holding you through your tears. The same love that carved mountains and oceans is etched into your DNA. You are not separate from God. You are the presence through which God experiences this world. And when you live from that truth, not as a concept, but as a conviction, you no longer need to hustle for worth. You no longer beg for love. You no longer seek outside what already radiates within, because you are that love. You are that worth. You are that light. And this is what it means to be a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. You are not here to arrive. You are here to remember. To remember the silence that knows your name. To remember the stillness that has never abandoned you. To remember the light that needs no fixing, only revealing. And so, as the world continues to spin and the noise continues to call, you now carry something different. A deeper awareness, a softer strength, a sacred knowing that you are not the waves crashing against the shore. You are the ocean itself. You are not the role you play. You are the breath behind the words. You are not your reflection in the mirror. You are the radiance that makes that image glow. You are a soul, eternal, boundless, free. And this body, this life, this fleeting form, it is your canvas. Now paint it with peace. Move with love. Speak from truth. And live like the divine spark you've always been. Not someday. Now, you are not here to prove your light. You are here to be it. And so you shall. In a world that never stops moving, stillness becomes the rarest form of wisdom. We are taught to chase, to climb, to hustle, to conquer. But the soul, your eternal essence, is not impressed by noise. It doesn't race. It doesn't strive. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And in the hush between your thoughts, in the quiet after the questions, that's where the soul begins to speak. Clarity is not something you achieve. It's something you remember. You were born with it, wrapped in simplicity, bathed in presence, untouched by confusion. But as the world's volume turned up, as expectations piled upon you, like bricks on the chest of your spirit, the clarity was buried beneath it all. Not lost, just waiting. Waiting for you to be still enough to feel it again. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of awareness. It is the moment when you are no longer doing life, but being life. And in that being, the fog lifts. You begin to see, not with the eyes, but with the heart. Not with logic, but with knowing. The kind of knowing that doesn't require proof because it is truth. Most people confuse clarity with answers. They think they'll feel clear once they figure it all out, once the past is explained, the future guaranteed, the pain justified. But clarity is not born in solving. It is born in surrender. When you stop clenching the steering wheel of your life so tightly, when you stop demanding certainty from an uncertain world, something miraculous happens, peace walks in. And where peace goes, clarity follows. Let us remember the truth known by sages and saints. You are not here to figure life out. You are here to feel it, to open to it, to soften into it like water returning to the sea. The need for control is the ego's obsession, but the soul has no such hunger. It doesn't need to control. It already belongs. It doesn't need to prove it already is. It doesn't need to race. It already rests. Your inner chaos is not because life is chaotic. It's because you've been avoiding the sacred space within you, the silence. You've been filling every crack in your day with noise, distraction, validation. But clarity doesn't rise through effort. It rises through stillness. It doesn't come from pushing. It comes from pausing. And in that pause, you meet yourself again. You were never meant to carry the world on your shoulders. The world is not yours to control. It's yours to experience, to love, to witness, and to let pass through you like wind through an open field. When you sit in stillness, you remember this. You remember that life is not a storm to be survived, but a breeze to be felt. And in feeling it fully, you return to the truth that you were never disconnected, just distracted. Distraction is the greatest thief of clarity, not because it takes something from you, but because it turns your gaze away from what was always there. Like the sun hidden behind clouds, your light never left. It was only obscured by thought, fear, busyness.
And when you finally get still, the clouds part, not all at once, but gently, respectfully, like a curtain rising to reveal your own divinity waiting patiently behind the veil. The stillness does not shout, it does not force, it invites, and it waits, always waits for you to accept. Not when the to-do list is done, not when the circumstances are perfect, but now in the breath you are taking, now in the space between your thoughts, now in the sacred pause where the mind rests and the soul wakes. And in this waking, something changes. You stop asking life to be different. You stop begging the moment to become something else. You begin instead to listen. To listen not with your ears, but with your entire being. You begin to hear the language of the soul, the language of stillness, and it tells you what no amount of striving could ever reveal. That you are safe, that you are loved, that you are already whole. Stillness is not a task. It is a homecoming, a return, a remembrance of who you were before the world told you who you should be. It is the falling away of every label, every mask, every identity constructed from fear. And as it all falls, what remains is essence. What remains is God not outside you, but in you. As you, moving through you, breathing you, being you. And in this sacred space, clarity is no longer something you seek. It becomes what you are. Let the world keep spinning. Let the chaos outside dance its wild, unpredictable dance. You don't need to control the storm. You only need to find the eye of it, the center. And that center is always still, that center is always you. So sit, breathe, be, and in that stillness, let the illusions dissolve. Let the old stories, the ones that said you're not enough, not worthy, not capable, let them fall like leaves in autumn, no longer needed for the soul's blooming. You are not your past. You are not your fear. You are not the noise of the world. You are the silence beneath it. You are the space between the notes, the rhythm that gives the music its meaning. You see now why clarity cannot be forced? Why it resists the grasping of the mind and instead flows through the openness of the heart? Because clarity is not information, it is transformation. It does not fill you, it empties you. And in that emptiness, you finally feel light enough to rise. You become like a feather surrendered to the wind, not passive, not powerless, but free. Free from the illusion that you need to have it all figured out. Free from the belief that healing requires effort. Free from the ego's insistence that you must earn peace. You don't earn peace, you return to it. You don't achieve clarity, you allow it. And all of it begins in stillness. So if you are weary, sit. If you are confused, sit. If you are broken, grieving, lost, overwhelmed, sit. Not to escape, not to avoid, but to arrive. Stillness is the most radical arrival. It is where you meet life without agenda, where you stop trying to be anything and remember you are already everything. In stillness, the soul speaks, and it speaks in a language beyond words, a language made of feeling, of knowing, of being. And what it whispers is this: you are already home. What if the very thing you've been searching for has been searching for you too? Not in the noise, not in the chase, but in the quiet you keep avoiding. What if stillness is not just a spiritual practice, but a doorway, a sacred threshold where the divine and the human meet, where the veil thins and truth is no longer something you read about, but something you feel vibrating through the marrow of your being? There's a reason the great mystics sat in silence. There's a reason the prophets wandered the desert. There's a reason the sages withdrew from the noise of cities and climbed mountains to find God. It's not because the divine is far. It's because the world is loud, too loud to hear the subtle beauty of the eternal that whispers from within, too loud to feel the sacred pulse of presence moving in every breath, too loud to hear the soul say, I'm still here, I never left, You just forgot how to listen. You don't need a new path. You need a deeper presence. You don't need to run forward. You need to fall inward, into the holy quiet where your spirit waits patiently behind the storm of your thoughts. Into the inner sanctuary where truth does not arrive dressed in certainty, but in peace. And that peace, that gentle presence, is the language of clarity. It does not bark orders or deliver perfect blueprints. It simply clears the debris so the light can shine again. And you have always been that light. The confusion, the anxiety, the overthinking, those are just clouds. And clouds, no matter how dark, can never extinguish the sun. The sun just waits. Still, constant, glowing behind the storm, your soul is that sun. Not in need of fixing, just waiting to be seen again. The world has conditioned you to think answers are earned by effort, that truth is something you must chase, something out there just beyond your reach. But the spiritual life is not about chasing anything. It is about remembering what is already within. It is the sacred reversal, the path not of gaining, but of shedding, of unlearning the noise. So you can return to the knowing. And it takes courage to be still. It takes courage to stop distracting yourself with the next thing, the next goal, the next identity. Because when you finally sit in silence, you meet yourself, not the self you show the world, not the self you've polished and performed, but the raw, trembling, holy self that has been whispering beneath the surface all along. Stillness is not easy. It confronts, it reveals, it humbles, it strips away everything that is false. It forces you to see the parts of yourself you've buried beneath achievement and validation. But it is in this seeing, this honest, sacred witnessing, that you begin to return home. And that homecoming is clarity. Not the clarity that gives you all the answers, but the clarity that says, you don't need them, you already are the answer. There's a kind of wisdom that lives in the quiet. It cannot be found in books or sermons or lectures. It is not taught, it is remembered. It is the wisdom of the trees that do not try to grow, but grow. The rivers that do not try to flow, but flow. The stars that do not try to shine, but shine. What makes them divine is not effort, but essence. And what makes you divine is not your doing, but your being. You are the tree, you are the river, you are the star, and you are never more aligned with the truth of life than when you are still enough to simply be. Sit with that. Let it break open the armor of your striving. Let it dissolve the illusion that your worth is somewhere ahead of you. Let it remind you that clarity is not the reward for working harder, but the revelation that comes when you finally stop. And the moment you stop, truly stop, you start to see, you see that your worth has never been in your productivity, that your value has never been in your accomplishments, that your purpose is not something you chase, but something you remember. And what you remember in the stillness is this: you are already whole. You are already held. You are already here. And here is where everything begins. When the mind gets quiet, the heart begins to speak. And it speaks in a different language, a softer one. It doesn't argue or compare or worry. It doesn't say when or if or someday. It says now. It says yes. It says I am. And this I am is the most powerful prayer you will ever whisper. It is not a begging of life to become something else. It is a full-bodied return to what already is. It is the dissolving of ego into essence. It is the surrender of resistance into rest. It is the moment you stop pushing the river and let yourself be carried. So sit. Sit like the mountain sits. Sit like the moon watches. Sit like the ocean waits. Not to escape life, but to merge with it. To merge with the still, unshaken, eternal pulse that has always been inside you. Clarity does not always come in lightning bolts. Sometimes it arrives like dew, soft, slow, and silent, but it nourishes, it renews, it awakens the parts of you that were never dead, just dormant. And in that awakening, you come alive, not as someone else, but as more fully yourself. There is no rush, There is only rhythm, the rhythm of breath, the rhythm of being, the rhythm of love that has no opposite because it was never conditional. The stillness teaches this. It shows you that underneath all your trying is a truth that never needed to be earned. You are the clarity. You are the peace. You are the stillness. And when you stop long enough to feel that, not just understand it, but truly feel it, you begin to live, not from fear, but from presence. Not from need, but from fullness. Not from ego, but from soul. And the soul, oh, the soul does not rush. The soul knows. The soul flows. The soul rests in the silence because it remembers what the mind forgets, that God is not somewhere else. God is here in the stillness, in the breath, in the now. There's something sacred about silence that terrifies the ego. The ego feeds on noise, on proving, achieving, calculating, defending. But the soul is nourished by stillness. The soul doesn't compete. It doesn't grasp or argue, it simply is. It breathes with the universe. It aligns with the eternal. It remembers. And the more you allow yourself to be still, the more you realize how loud your life had become. Not just in volume, but in expectation. Every moment stacked with demands, every thought laced with pressure, every breath taken like it had to accomplish something. But stillness says otherwise. Stillness says, come as you are, let go of the armor, lay down the need to be more than you are in this moment. It's enough. You're enough. You see, clarity doesn't need you to be perfect. It only needs you to be present. Present enough to witness what's been underneath all along. Not the story of who you think you are, but the truth of what you've always been, the presence behind the personality, the awareness behind the thoughts, the light behind the identity. When you return to stillness, you return to yourself. Not the self shaped by fear or comparison or past wounds, but the self with a capital S, the infinite spark that existed before the world had a name for you. And that spark doesn't flicker, it burns steady. Even when the mind is in chaos, the soul remains calm. Even when life is uncertain, the spirit stays whole. But we forget. We get caught in the swirl. We mistake the turbulence of our thoughts for the truth of our being. And in that forgetting, we suffer. We chase things that cannot fill us. We climb ladders that lead nowhere. We try to quiet the noise with more noise. But the answer has never changed. The way home has never moved. It waits, always waits in the quiet. So sit in the discomfort if it's there. Sit in the emptiness if that's what rises. Sit even when the mind screams that you should be doing something, especially then. Because the moment you stop running from yourself is the moment you begin to heal. Stillness is not passive. It is the most radical form of alignment. It is choosing to return when the world tells you to run. It is saying, I trust the silence more than the shouting. And in that trust, clarity emerges. Not as a lightning strike, but as a soft unfolding like petals opening to the sun, one breath at a time. Do you feel it? That gentle remembering that you don't have to strive to be worthy? That quiet hum beneath your rib cage that says you're not broken, just buried? That sacred pull inward that whispers, stop trying, just be? That's clarity rising. That's your soul stepping forward after years of waiting for you to pause, to listen, to come home. Because the soul cannot shout over the ego. It will never fight for your attention. It will simply wait. It will wait while you exhaust yourself with proving. It will wait while you perform for love. It will wait while you carry burdens that were never yours to carry. And when you finally put them down, when you sit in the stillness long enough to hear the silence, it will gently say, welcome back. There is no punishment for forgetting, only pain. The pain of being disconnected from your own light. But that pain too is a teacher. It is not here to destroy you. It is here to guide you not toward more doing, but toward deeper being. Every ache, every doubt, every unraveling moment is a breadcrumb leading you back to the stillness where clarity lives. And when you enter that space, something sacred happens. You stop asking life for explanations. You stop begging the universe to make it make sense. You begin instead to trust, not because you have the answers, but because you no longer need them. You begin to feel the subtle but unshakable truth that you are guided, that you are carried, that you are enough. The world outside may still be loud, but the world within becomes your sanctuary. And from that sanctuary, everything changes. Not because life changes, but because you see it differently. You see it through the eyes of presence, through the lens of love, through the truth of your soul, which was never confused, only unheard. And so you walk differently. You speak with more softness. You listen with more depth. You move with more grace. Not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you're no longer trying to be anything else. You are finally being what you are, a sacred thread in the fabric of existence, a note in the great song of creation, a soul remembering its light. Stillness teaches you that nothing is missing, that you don't need to chase alignment. You need only remove the noise that's hiding it. You don't need to create purpose. You need only feel the pulse of it that's always been within you. Let go of the idea that clarity is something to be earned. It is not a prize. It is a presence. It arises when you are brave enough to stop, open enough to listen, soft enough to feel. It flows in like a tide, not when you command it, but when you invite it. And it washes away everything that was never true. In the stillness, illusions dissolve, masks fall, armor melts. You become transparent to yourself. And in that transparency, there is nothing left to defend, nothing left to fix, nothing left to prove. There is only truth. And the truth is that you are already whole. You always have been. Stillness does not change your life by adding more to it. It changes your life by taking away what never belonged. The false urgency, the inherited fear, the borrowed dreams, the narratives handed to you by a world that confused motion for meaning. Stillness is the great purifier. It doesn't decorate the cage, it dissolves it. And what's left when the cage dissolves? Freedom. The kind of freedom that doesn't shout or need permission. The kind of freedom that doesn't come with flags or declarations. The kind of freedom that lives in your breath. Quiet, sacred, unmistakable. It's the freedom of no longer being pulled in 1,000 directions. The freedom of finally hearing your own voice again after years of listening to everyone else's. The freedom of remembering that you are allowed to choose peace over performance. When you begin to live from stillness, you no longer crave validation in the same way. You no longer bend yourself into versions that fit the room. You no longer ask people to fill the void that only presence can hold. Because you've tasted something deeper. You've touched the well beneath the world's thirst. You've returned to the source, not in theory, but in living, breathing reality. And from that place, everything changes. You love without attachment. You speak without trying to impress. You listen without waiting to respond. You no longer react, you respond. Because you are no longer driven by unconscious stories. You are awake now, rooted, still. Clarity strips away the unnecessary. It reveals the essence. And when you see with essence, you don't just see more clearly, you see more kindly. You look at your pain with tenderness instead of judgment. You hold your past with compassion instead of shame. You see other people's anger as fear, their cruelty as confusion, their arrogance as woundedness. And you forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Stillness births this kind of clarity. Not the kind that just makes decisions easier, but the kind that makes the heart softer. The kind that lets you walk through the same world, but with entirely new eyes, eyes that see through illusion, that recognize divine patterns in chaos, that find peace not in the absence of noise, but in the presence of awareness. There is a sacred intelligence moving through this universe. Call it God, call it source, call it life. It is not random, it is not cruel, it is precise, gentle, profoundly aware of what your soul came here to remember. But it doesn't force you. It invites you. It will not wrestle your will to the ground. It will wait. And it waits in the quiet. You want to know who you are? Then be still. Don't just sit with the question. Become the space that no longer needs to ask. That's what stillness does. It doesn't answer your questions, it dissolves them. It doesn't fix your brokenness, it reveals that you were never broken. It doesn't give you new ideas, it clears the fog so truth can rise. Like the sun rising not because it's told to, but because it's what it does. You are not here to be a performer on life's stage. You are not here to be constantly visible, constantly relevant, constantly productive. You are here to be real, to be awake, to be so rooted in truth that nothing outside you has the power to uproot you. And that kind of rootedness comes not from willpower, but from stillness. It's in stillness that you remember the rhythm of life, the inhale and exhale, the expansion and the return, the rise and the rest. You were never meant to run endlessly forward. You were designed to pause, to reflect, to listen, to let the tide carry you back inward before you reach again outward. The clarity that comes in stillness is not about making better plans. It's about no longer needing a plan to feel safe. It's about trusting the unfolding, about letting go of your white-knuckled grip on how you think it should go and leaning fully into the mystery. Because the mystery is not your enemy. It is the birthplace of grace. Do not fear the unknown. Fear missing it. Fear becoming so busy, so distracted, so addicted to noise that you never hear the invitation hiding beneath the surface of your life. The invitation to come home, not to a house, not to a person, not to a belief, but to the timeless space within you that has never been touched by fear. That place is still. That place is whole. That place is where clarity lives. And once you live from that space, the world no longer controls your peace. You no longer chase love, you become it. You no longer fear endings, you trust transitions. You no longer resist what is, you flow with it. And in that flow, everything sacred becomes visible again. The ordinary becomes holy. The mundane becomes miraculous. And so the invitation remains, be still. Not because it's trendy, not because it's spiritual, but because your soul remembers the language of silence. And it's time you did too. You won't find yourself in the next breakthrough, the next relationship, the next success. You will find yourself when you stop running. When you sit in the quiet with nothing to prove, nowhere to get, no one to become. And in that sitting, you will hear the oldest truth echo through your being. You are always it. You are always enough. You are always home. So now, as the breath slows and the noise begins to fade into the background once more, you find yourself standing not at the end, but at the return. The return to what was always real, always waiting, always whispering beneath the rush of the world. This is not a conclusion. This is the moment when all the seeking dissolves and only the stillness remains. And in that stillness, everything becomes clear. You don't need to make life perfect. You don't need to fix every flaw or heal every ache before you are allowed to be at peace. You are allowed now. Not after the storm in it, not once clarity comes, but because clarity comes when you stop demanding it and begin allowing it. The stillness does not erase the journey. It blesses it. It gathers every shattered moment and folds it into a single quiet truth. Nothing was wasted. Every detour was a teacher. Every heartbreak was a mirror. Every silence you avoided was a door back to yourself. You ran, yes. You stumbled. You forgot. But the soul never left you. It simply waited. And now you are ready to listen again. And what does the soul say? It doesn't give you instructions. It doesn't hand you a map. It doesn't require that you understand. It only asks that you trust. Trust the pause. Trust the breath. Trust the invisible rhythm that life has been moving to all along, even when you couldn't hear the music. Let the stillness be your sanctuary now. Let it be your teacher, your guide, your anchor, not once in a while, but always. Let it meet you in the morning before your thoughts begin. Let it hold you at night when your fears return. Let it be the space you return to when the world demands your performance. And you remember, I am not a role. I am not an idea. I am not what others need me to be. I am presence itself. And presence does not perform. Clarity is not a light that flickers on and off depending on your worthiness. It is always shining. It is always speaking. It is we who turn away, we who drown it out. We who run, not because we are lost, but because we forgot we already belong. And now, beloved soul, you remember that silence is not empty, it is full. You remember that surrender is not weakness, it is power. You remember that the pause is not the absence of progress, it is the birth of purpose. You remember that nothing outside you needs to change for you to return home. Because home is not a place, it is a presence. And it lives in you, right here, right now. It always did. So walk on, not with certainty, but with clarity. Not with all the answers, but with the knowing that you are allowed to not know and still be deeply, beautifully whole. Speak less to convince. Listen more to understand. Create not to impress, but to express. Love, not for what it brings back to you, but for the miracle of what it brings out of you. You do not need to be louder, you need to be truer. You do not need to be seen more, you need to see more. You do not need more power, you need deeper peace. And all of it begins and ends in the stillness you were once afraid to sit in. Now you know better. Stillness is not where you lose yourself, it's where you find yourself again. Not the self the world taught you to perform, but the real self, the quiet self, the eternal self, the self that does not need to be explained, only remembered. And so let your next breath be not a rush toward answers, but a return to presence. Let your next moment be not another chase for clarity, but a sacred pause where clarity finds you. You are not here to waste time. You are here to touch eternity, and you do so every time you choose to be still. So be still now, not because the world told you to rest, but because your soul remembered it could. Let this be the moment you stop waiting to arrive and realize you already have. Let this be the end of searching and the beginning of being. Clarity has come, not because the world changed, but because you did. Because you stopped, because you listened, because you remembered who you are. And who you are is enough. Always was, always will be. And now you know it. Clarity comes in the stillness. And in that stillness, you are finally free.